there are headlines everywhere related to this. I wouldn't say it's leaked document, but it was brought up in Discovery. If you aren't aware, OpenAI is involved with something related to the Justice Department, and they're trying to break up Google's monopoly. So it's actually technically, not directly related to OpenAI, but there's a memo that came up in Discovery that detailed OpenAI's plans to make ChatGPT an integral part of our lives. And as you can imagine, that's been blown up all over the place to, say OpenAI has plans for world domination. They're trying to take over everybody. It's all this, most of it's nefarious for the purposes of clickbait. And to be fair, I want to cover it in a balanced way because there are some real risks that I think we need to take into consideration with this. And yet, like so much stuff, I don't think it's necessarily a fair representation of what may be happening here. And I'll explain my line of thinking about this. But essentially, there's this heavily redacted, so it's not like you can find all the details, which I think is also a big reason to not freak out about stuff, because people find a little thing and go, see, this must mean, and then they add all sorts of things, which is just a bad practice all around, not just if you come across a redacted document, but just in general. So let's not get into that. But the point is, they came across this heavily redacted thing, and in it, OpenAI is openly discussing their plans to, build an assistant, an AI agent that knows you, understands what you care about, basically can help you with any task, is trustworthy, emotionally intelligent. Like, they're trying to build something that you can't live without. And so you can understand why in a document between a bunch of senior leaders at, these big tech companies, this document kind of outlining, we have a plan to we really want to make ChatGPT something people are reliant on. We want people to be dependent on our product, and we're going to make the best absolute product we can to be able to do that. And that is our end game. Our end game is to make it so you feel like you can't live without it. I understand where the concern related to that is, but I don't think that should come as a surprise to many people. But before I get into the concerning part, let's talk about why I think we need to be careful about jumping to some of the extremely nefarious things related to this. First of all, for a second, anybody who's ever designed a product or done a job or anything, do you ever want, quite frankly, I would be more concerned, not more concerned, but I would find it more disturbing if they said, we want to build a crap product, but manipulate people into being hooked on it. That to me would represent a more nefarious thing. We know it's garbage. We know it's going to destroy their lives, but we're going to make people addicted to it. That to me would be more like what we saw with the big tobacco industry stuff, where it was like, yeah, we know it's killing everybody, but how do we keep getting kids to do it? Because once we get them hooked on it, we know we've got a customer for life. That is like dark conference room type of a thing. This feels more like, and again, I'm just interpreting what we know. This feels more like we want to build a fantastic, phenomenal product that people love, find super helpful, and feel like, how did I not have this before? I get where that creeps people out when they think about, these are AI companies putting AI in our hands and all, and it's gathering all this data. And yes, rightfully so, are there concerns related to it? Yet, what product owner, at least what good product owner, doesn't want to create a phenomenal product that people feel like they can't live without? If this was, I don't know, the Scrub Daddy or what, don't you think the Scrub Daddy CEO feels the same way? I want people feeling like, how did I ever use another sponge in my life? I can't go anywhere without my Scrub Daddy. Or, the iPhone, or move off technology. What household product has a founder, the person who created it, not gone, I want people to want this? To me, that's indicative of somebody who believes deeply in what they're doing and wants to build something great. So, and I get Sam Altman there's good reasons why people are skeptical of the guy. I understand why there's hesitation around some of this stuff. There are plenty of instances why, but I think we need to be careful about immediately jumping to all those conclusions when you see something like this, because based on what we can see in the redacted document, it reads to me more like a very enthusiastic product designer who's trying to make sure a big potential client partner, is as excited about the product as they are. Like, this is where we're going with it. Is it a surprise that AI companies wouldn't want you to be dependent on AI? I mean, I think that's pretty obvious with how it's being built and designed and all this other stuff. Now, I'm not saying that's good. So just to be really, really careful and clear that nobody walks away with this and says, I just listened to Future Focus and Christopher says he thinks AI addiction is a good thing. What? No. You listen to my other stuff, you would know that's not at all what I am saying. I'm also not saying that, because they have a desire to make a great product, there's not any possibility it could go sideways. That's also not what I'm saying. So I want to be really clear on that, because I feel like no matter what I say, sometimes people hear what they want to hear, and then I get comments and emails later, and I'm like, that's actually not what I said at all. So to be clear, I'm not saying wanting people hooked on AI is a good thing. I'm not saying that there's not the possibility that this could go sideways. I'm simply saying, based on what we can see and what we know, this seems more like someone who sees they've got a great product and they want to build it into something magnificent, at least in their eyes, what they define as magnificent, and get everybody in the world to use it. Okay, all right, fair. And this would be where, if I was advising or involved with some of this stuff, I'd say, now that's fine, but now let's talk about where do we draw the boundary lines on this, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And this is one of those areas where I think this is something that, as consumers, we need to be aware that this is the intent. Now, that's not saying it's nefarious. It's just it's an awareness thing. You need to know their goal is to make it such that you literally cannot function. I mean, you know what I mean? Not they're trying to make you completely incapable without it, but they're building a product. They want a lifetime product owner. Like, they want a lifetime supply of revenue. They want somebody who's going to buy all the upgrades. They're going to want people who, just like Apple, they love the fact that Apple people are Apple people and they buy every Apple product. And I say that as somebody who has an Apple Watch and an iPhone and a Mac. And I'm in the ecosystem. I have an iPad that I get it. But I'm aware that that's what they're doing so that I can think critically and assess, hey, am I becoming vulnerable to just jumping on something simply because I'm in the ecosystem? And I think that's one of the things, and why I say we need to be aware. This is their intent. They want to embed their AI into literally everything so that you feel like you need it. Now, could that be a nefarious thing? Absolutely. I mean, do some research into how drugs got their foothold on things. And depending on the ones you learn about, you'll learn, like, sometimes this was a very intentional, like, hey, we're going to get you hooked on this so that you can't get off of it. I think what we have to be careful of is jumping to the conclusion that that is inherently the way they're thinking about it. But whether that's the way they're thinking or that's the intent or not, we need to be aware that is the intention. You know, whether nefarious or I just believe it's so great, everybody should have it all the time. Intention aside, or motive aside, you still got to remember their goal, their stated objective is to create a product that is so intuitive, knows you so well, is so integrated into everything you do, you can't function without it. If you didn't listen to my podcast last week, go check it out. But I talked about the partnership with Altman and Johnny Ives. or Johnny Ive about the new wearable device. And I said, what do you think they want? Not only do they want training data, but they also want you to feel like I can't go anywhere without OpenAI listening and watching everything I'm doing. So at any point, I can ask it anything. Now, you could paint that in the picture of, oh, that's Dr. Evil in the corner going, ha, or that's a really excited founder who goes, what? I just want people to be getting value out of this thing. It still doesn't matter that the direction is the same. So be aware of that with these AI products. And that's why I continue telling people, be conscious of where you're integrating it. Be conscious of, hey, where might I be getting a little like soft around the middle because I'm not really thinking do I still have the capability to do this on my own? What happens if this goes down? Do I still feel comfortable functioning? I mean, I honestly think about that all the time with some of the things. So just here's a prime example of this. AI helps me with a lot of my workflows and keep track of a lot of things. I frequently go through everything I use AI on and do contingency planning on what would I do if this went out? Let's say I no longer had access to Gemini. Let's see, the big ones I use. Doesn't matter because I'm not plugging which ones, but the big ones I use. What would I do? What things would I stop doing? What things would I trim back on? Where would I go? Like, are there certain things where I go, well, I know AI helps me with that, but I don't need to do it. So I would just drop it type of thing. And so I've got contingency plans for literally everything tied to AI. And that's the kind of thinking that we all need to be doing, knowing we've got companies who are heavily invested on making sure we can't do that. Not necessarily nefariously, but they don't want to think about us going, you know what, I could actually get off of AI. And also be realistic and objective about it, because I know lots of people who've struggled with addiction who continue insisting, I could get off of this. I could stop that. I just don't want to. That's why I could do it. I think about, I'm sure I'd be fine. I just don't want to. And so for me, there are times I go dark from AI just to, again, test my contingency plans. Am I actually dependent on it? Or could I flip it off and go, yeah, I'm fine. Like things would change. I'd prioritize differently. I'd make different decisions about what I'm doing, but, not going to worry about it. So I think that's one of the biggest things I want to make sure I reinforce with this, because the reality is this isn't going to stop. This is not, and this isn't just a Sam Altman is an evil villain. This is what all the big AI companies want. All of them. They all do. They all want exactly what is in that memo. They want something that knows you, understands what you care about, helps with any task that a smart, trustworthy, emotionally intelligent person with a computer could do. That's what they want. And they want that embedded in every part of your life so that you feel like I can't not have this. And it's good for their finances. It's good for their product development. And in their minds, I think a lot of them think, and this is good for you. Why wouldn't you want that? Might they have different intentions? Maybe, but either way, the outcome's the same. Now, I think the part that we also need to be careful with this, and this is where I said, do I think that this means there's no way this could ever go sideways? No, I think it very much could still go sideways. And what I mean by that is, when that is your stated motive, there are going to be walls you're going to press against where you go, well, how far are we willing to go to make sure people are hooked on this? And I'm involved in enough ethical conversations related to this, not specific to Altman, so don't say, but I'm in enough of these conversations where this line is being tested of how far do we go to make sure people can't function without it. And that, I think, is something that AI companies, businesses, things like that is on you. And you need to have an established ethical framework for how far is too far. And also for a company, and this is one of the things that I just don't think we always think about, is it sounds good. you can frame it up as good in your head. Oh, it'd be great if everybody was dependent on AI and they're all buying. But then you also have to think, but what are the long-term consequences of that? And that's something that, like any company that went down maybe a noble path to start and lost their way and ended up wreaking havoc, speaking to some big social media companies, right? They lose their way because this goal of being, this far, they don't think of the consequences. And so you need to know they're not thinking of these consequences. They may be, but the stated goal of it's good for everybody to be dependent on this is more important right now, at least for many of them. Despite all the talk of ethical AI and responsible AI, what is often trumping these conversations is, well, yeah, but it's so good, it's worth it. It's worth it. And some of the actual risks associated with it are not being taken as seriously as they should. Again, should that freak you out? I mean, maybe a little bit. I think not necessarily. I think it should just make you more aware and conscious and more willing to go, all right, I need to think about this. And as a business, this isn't just to individuals, by the way. As a business, all these AI companies that are selling you, this is going to change your life, this is going to change your company, it's going to streamline everything. They're not going to say, oh, and by the way, we want you to be 100% dependent on this so that if you even thought of not renewing your contract, your business would go under. Now, we could sit and argue all day long the ethical lines of that. However, it's about awareness, and businesses, this is something, and this is why, if you need help, please call me, because it's one of those, you just need to think through the dependencies. You need to think through the risks, because there are unintended consequences, and some of them are starting to surface. We still haven't even scratched the surface with this. So there's stuff that's happening, and I'm going to talk about that in the next update, that people are not taking into consideration. And I promise you, the AI companies are not thinking of your best interests first. They're not. So what do you do with that? Well, you just be aware that their goal is to get you addicted to it, to make it so integrated into your life. And that means they're going to want it absolutely everywhere. So you need to go, okay, well, if they want it everywhere, I need to be drawing boundary lines where it's not going to go. And they want you dependent on it for everything, so you can't function without it, which, okay, you know that now. So now where do you need to make sure that you've done your dependent contingency planning to go, where would I go if AI quit working? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was just last year. There was a big AI outage, and you would have thought the world was ending. Well, as a company, as an individual, you need to make sure that that wouldn't happen to you. So there you go. That's what's going on with this. Be careful with the hype. Don't water the seeds of all the really nefarious. It's not helpful, because at the end of the day, whether it's nefarious or good intention, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but for you, it's more like you know that that's where it's going. You need to define those lines and not go, I'm sure OpenAI is I'm sure all those big AI companies, they're going to put in ethical boundaries that are going to make sure my best interests are protected. No. And if you delegate that decision to them, you will reap the full consequences of this. That's what you're signing up for if you're going to allow someone else to define, whether it's for your business or for you as an individual, how far you're going to let this go. So my recommendation would be, don't let that happen.